order if you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Black.
Here.
Alderman Sassini.
Here.
Alderman Fruin.
Here.
Alderman Lauer.
Here.
Alderman Sage.
Here.
Alderman Walamwe.
Here.
Alderman Stern.
Here.
Alderman Painter.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. We have 5 people who have asked to address the council, and they have up to 3 minutes, but no more. And we're going to go ahead and start out with Ms. Patricia Martin. Patricia, would you please come forward? Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I've been doing research in the Law and Justice Center Library for several months and have come across a considerable amount of protective legislation regarding abusive treatment of younger and older people, together with information on agencies that can be contacted in case of need. Such information is obviously reassuring, but I wonder why more of us, employers, employees, and the general population, are not aware of its existence. October is National Bullying Prevention Awareness Month, and this could be a good time to call attention to such material and how it can be used to rectify the issues that have brought it into being. One possible idea would be to consolidate existing statutes and ordinances in brief form in a brochure or online for consultation, again, by those who need it. The Illinois Adult Protective Services Act, dealing with aging populations, and the Illinois Criminal Code should be included. I find the wording in these statutes most interesting, as both recognize the fact that, for example, abuse, as in Section 2 of the Protective Services Act, and intimidation, as in Section 12-6 of the Criminal Code, can cause not just physical but mental injury. A landmark case occurred several years ago in Britain when a 16-year-old girl who bullied an 11-year-old girl was charged with assault due to the effect on the victim, even though no physical harm was done. And this case sets a precedent that assault can be psychological as well as physical. The names of agencies available for assistance could also be included in this prospective brochure. PATH, LifeSIL, which deals with the disabled populations, the police and their domestic violence program, the Salvation Army, and the mandated reporter program. In the latter, employees of social and medical services are legally obliged to report any suspected incidents of abuse among vulnerable populations, young and old. As I've mentioned before, I'm happy to see how our joint communities and county have been increasing the development of such assistance, and am continuing to offer help myself. I'm currently working with Neville House, have joined the Public Safety Working Group, and will be participating in Police Chief Hefner's focus group meetings as well. And I want to thank all of you for your time and for your support, and also to the staff of the Law and Justice Center Library for proofreading this material. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Bruce Meeks. Good evening.
Good evening. Hopefully I won't use 3 minutes like I usually do. First off, there's a bit of information coming to you that I'll get to in a minute. Tonight we're going to finally get past 743 days since I introduced a proposed piece of legislation called the Website Transparency Ordinance. Thankfully tonight it's on the agenda. As I said before, I'm very disappointed it took 743 days to do something that was obviously needed to be done, and it should have been done before we started live streaming in January of 2013, which is the whole reason I did it. To help us to have live streaming for all meetings. The current legislation you have tonight does not include that. I ask that it be amended to include all public City of Bloomington meetings. Live streaming. As been noted in some of the notes from some of the aldermen, there's nothing about retention. I think we can do better than the legal limit of retention. We have a tendency as a city to go just the legal limit, and we never seem to look over the horizon and do better. We always talk about doing better. What I'm proposing tonight to you is a new ordinance. Hopefully it won't take 743 days to be considered. I ask that it be considered at the committee of the whole because of our new structure. And we have a discussion between citizens and aldermen, staff, and other experts. This is a data set ordinance. This talks about all the government data. This meets the following words: accountability, proactive, cost-effective, enhancing, prompt, efficient, consistency, convenient, shows leadership, right to know, open, transparent, and my favorite area, best practices for technical. So I ask this go to the committee of the whole. I think that's the new vetting process we can use since we are trying to do a paradigm shift and we're trying to change culture. By the way, each copy has your name at the bottom. If you have the wrong copy, that's okay. You can interchange them. Hopefully I got them in the right order. I chose to pick August 743 days ago because that's just before you hopefully start the fiscal budget review and discussions in case there's money that have to be allocated to do this. I hope we don't have to wait 700 days to do something that's pretty easy. I'm glad we finally have public comment, and that was not for me. That was the law, and this city council and the previous city council did not abide by the law. Thankfully now, with the public comment passed, we're legal. Thanks.
Thank you. Is it Donna Bolin? I apologize if I've mispronounced your name.
Good evening. I have 3 questions, and they reference.
I wonder if you could speak a little closer to the microphone. Yeah, it's, I think also with the raindrops that are falling on our head, it's a little.
I have 3 questions that refer to the enforcement of city code violations. The first question is, I'd like to know who in the city is responsible for holding a developer responsible or accountable for the citation violation, and what are the consequences of not abiding by those or resolving the violation, and is there a mechanism in place to establish a limited time frame? And this is specifically in reference to a serious erosion problem on Savannah Road in the Fox Hollow subdivision. The problem has been there for several years. I've lived there for 3 years, and I've contacted the developer on 3 occasions with no response. So I finally called the city, and the engineer came out and looked at it. I was informed that this problem has been presented to the developer on many occasions, and all the other city violations that are out in that subdivision have also been presented to the developer. And it's fruitless. Nothing is done. And at this point in time, the erosion has reached within 6 feet of the sidewalk. And there's sewage out there. And if the erosion continues, it will undermine the sidewalk, sewers, street, etc. My main concern is that Savannah is the only street that goes in and out of the subdivision through Foxtrot Trail. So there is a safety issue for the residents that live there because the police, fire department would not be able to come in, and we would not be able to access our homes. Yeah, I mean driving in and out from work or whatever. So I would like to have that information given to me, or somehow the city council address the problem in a timely fashion.
Okay. It's just for your purposes and the audience. Public comment, we really don't engage back and forth, but what I would ask you to do is maybe talk to our PACE director, Planning Code Enforcement, who's in the back of the room, if you could get his contact information, or send me an email, and I'll make sure you get a response.
Okay.
As soon as possible.
Okay.
You can do it mayor@cityblm.org. Okay.
First
Thank you.
time here. Sorry about
And
that.
Mayor, if I
Oh, I'm
could, Mrs. Bolton, I'm going to have Jim Karch raise his hand back there. If you'd go back and speak to him, he'd be the best
Oh,
one to
okay.
start with.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then next, Alton Franklin.
My name is Alton Franklin. I live at 508 Patterson Drive here in Bloomington. A number of things crossing my mind. I got it kind of refreshed in that I was here for the talk about the underpass. And first of all, I would like to say thank you very much to Alderman Schmidt. I was concerned that you had made words before, and it seems like you're sticking with this and are quite vociferous with regards to how developers should start accepting the fact that there are costs of business that they are responsible for. I really don't get it. It's a business. Development is a business. And yes, we're talking about a substantial sum of money. We're also talking about, as I understand it, somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 50 houses just on this phase. And I'm just curious why it's such an issue for people who can afford a $300,000 home to kick in a couple thousand more to take care of what I consider to be a rather significant safety issue. Above and beyond that, I think we deserve a certain return on investment from what we've given the developers before, because they've really had the lily gilded for them with regards to past dealings with the city. And Alderwoman Painter, I think you really echoed a lot of the sentiments that I have with regards to it. It just kind of appalls me when I continue to see this. I'm beginning to think that I need to start a business selling Bloomington socks. They already have handprints painted on them. I really have an issue with it, and from my perspective, if they want to play the game of, well, I'll take my toys and go someplace else, fine. With the way that we were going, as you alluded to, we've been over 1,000, and there aren't too many places that can claim that. So this is
Not
a
in
growing
Illinois.
market, and I'm saying. If they want to walk away from it, I'm sure somebody else will walk up to it. With regards to the carriage walks, I was concerned. I actually read a rather substantial article in the Pantograph about the lady who had, apparently they just came out and just yanked it out. And I'm somewhat akin to Clark Gable in an old movie I saw a long time ago. I'm a reporter. 5 friends have I. Their names are who, where, when, what, and why. And I want to know who made that determination and why. The simple fact of the matter is that they're going to go after deep pockets if litigation is involved. There's a number of other things I would like to speak to, but I just don't have the time. One thing I would like to just bring back up again is I would really like to see the justification for the waiving the bids, just so we'd have a little 1 or 2 sentence thing that says, because we're buying it from the government schedule or whatever it happens to be, or it's the only company that makes that material, like we have with our street sealant. So
Thank you, Alton. Thanks.
we appreciate it.
Thanks. Good evening. Mr. Lambert, Gary Lambert.
Gary Lambert, 3018 East Oakland. I hadn't planned on speaking this evening, but having sat through the session where we discussed the Grove, I'd like to echo the previous compliments to Alderman Painter in standing up, I think, for the citizens. Too often I see members of the council saying, oh, that would sure be a nice thing to do. Why don't we just let all the citizens of Bloomington pay for the select few? To me, that's a theme that occurs over and over again. The beneficiaries are not paying for it. Yet at the same time, we have no trouble going after the poor person who has a problem with his sewer, and we're going to wring that last nickel out of him for fixing the sewers on city property. I see, just from this information here, We're contractually obligated we've already spent over 10 million. We've got another 5 or 6 to go. I understand that. But we do not need to be taking on any additional money just because it's a nice thing to do. Just to repeat previous words there, if they can afford a $300,000 house and that would make their house too expensive, what do they think about the poor person over there on the west side of town? Time to get back to reality. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving next on to recognitions and appointments. And I have the distinct honor and pleasure to introduce the process for the oath for Tyler Zimmerman, firefighter. And if I could have our distinguished police or fire chief come forward. I keep wanting to make you fire or police chief.
Please don't. Please don't.
Thank you.
And I have a lot of respect for our police chief, but boy, no thank you.
Well, we want you just where you are. And if the family would come forward too for photos, you're certainly welcome. Come on up.
Make sure everybody's in position here. So, well, Mayor and Council, I'd like to again welcome one of our newest firefighters to our ranks today. This is Tyler Zimmerman. Tyler was born in Pontiac, Illinois. He is the youngest of 4 children, 2 brothers and a sister. He grew up on a farm here in Central Illinois. And during the time he grew up, he listened to stories that were told by his older brothers who were both firefighters. He learned the honor of being a firefighter from them, and this created the desire within him to do the same. After high school, he attended Harlan Community College and studied for his paramedic license. Tyler spent hours of ride time with our department during the process while working in construction, retail, and on the family farm. After passing his paramedic exam, he worked at Pro Ambulance in Champaign-Urbana until we offered him an opportunity here. In 2010, Tyler married his wife, Casey, and they currently live in Bloomington with their dog, Louie. Tyler says his first year at Bloomington Fire has been a dream come true, and I look forward to a long career here. I would also like to point out that Tyler was the actually top finisher in his academy class, which is an outstanding achievement as being valedictorian of that class with was it 30 other firefighters in your class? So we're very proud of him. His first year here, he has done an outstanding job, and again, very, very happy to have him. So, Tyler? Thank you, sir.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Tyler Zimmerman,
I, Tyler Zimmerman,
having been appointed to the position
having been appointed to the position
of firefighter
of firefighter
in the city of Bloomington,
in the city of
in
Bloomington,
the county of McLean,
in the county of McLean,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of firefighter
the duties of firefighter
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. God bless you. Wish we did one of these at every council meeting. Fine.
I want to echo Alderwoman Schmidt's comment. I wish we did one of these at every council meeting. This is just wonderful. Thank you. We do have another special occasion. Tina Swanson, come on down. We have an award. If you come on up here. I don't bite. At least not most of the time. Anyway, so Again, there's a designation as an Illinois Healthy Work Site in recognition of outstanding employee health promotion practices awarded to the City of Bloomington, the gold level, and we thank you so much for all you've done and all your leadership and work and this. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
This is cool.
Yeah, I love it.
Sure. And next, we have an
And
award.
Mayor, if
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
could, I just, I think it's interesting to note, Bloomington is one of only 7 organizations in the entire state of Illinois to receive this highest gold award.
Wow.
So again, it's quite an honor not only to Tina, but all the many employees that participate in our many wellness organizations, and she certainly is at the forefront in coordinating all that. So it's not only a great distinction for her, but the city of Bloomington as well.
Right. And our great judgment for hiring her. And we do have an award and abstention for Alex McElroy, an ICMA Certificate of Distinction Award. And I'll turn it over to our city manager if you want to clarify that. Again, the ICMA is the International City County Management Association. Yes.
And Mayor and Council, we have previously also received this award, but it's an annual award, and the ICMA Center for Performance Analytics, that's the new terminology for this particular, has awarded Bloomington the Certificate of Distinction. Bloomington is one of only 11 jurisdictions receiving this certificate out of 49 recognized throughout the nation. So it is quite the honor. Alex McElroy has been at the forefront of having primary responsibility to help the departments participate in ICMA's annual Center for Performance Measurement, submitting of data, reporting of data, and then sharing this. And as we heard last week, the council gives the go-ahead to participate in priority-based budgeting. Performance metrics will be an integral part of this process and the reporting on a year-to-year basis. So even though we're recognizing Alex, we do want to indicate that all the directors and many other staff members throughout the city organization have played a very instrumental role in helping us to earn this award. So our thanks to Alex and all the many employees who have helped in earning this distinction award from ICMA.
Great. Thank you very much. Next, we move right along to our consent agenda. And are there any items on the consent agenda under item 7 from A through N that any members of the council would like to remove? Let's see, Alderwoman Schmidt.
I'd like to pull item 7K, carriage walks, for more discussion.
Okay, 7K. Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, that is with the exception of item 7K on carriage walks?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Fazzini. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by several people. Alderman Lauer this time. Okay. And let's see, Alderman Fruin.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. With regard to both the consent and the regular agenda, I have not received any monies or financial benefits from any of the individuals or organizations referenced in each of these specific agenda items. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else other than that? If you can go ahead and vote on the consent agenda as amended, please. Right, the motion carries 9-0. Madam Clerk, there are no nays to announce. Thank you. Moving right along, I'll turn to Alderwoman Schmidt, who has pulled item 7K on carriage walks. It's a text amendment to Chapter 38. Thank you.
Thanks. I am at a bit of a disadvantage because I wasn't at our work session, but and I had asked questions beforehand. I know I've got some staff response here, but I still have some questions that have to do with the intention, particularly of this, let's see, I want to make sure I have the right phrase here, the encroachment license. Did we agree at our work session that property owners have to put carriage walks on their homeowners insurance policy?
I don't know that that was quite it, but I'll see.
Mayor, let me have Jeff Jurgens, Corporate Counsel, come up that was at that committee of the whole, and he can kind of address this.
Thanks.
Yes, that was in the encroachment license that we had previously presented to the council. And the rationale for that is if we're going I think, and Mr. Karsh can perhaps talk a little better to this point, but I think historically the city had viewed the carriage walks as a potential liability, and so a lot of times it was their practice to remove them if work was being done on adjoining sidewalks or roadways as kind of work was done throughout the city. They had made exceptions for that and required indemnity and different things to be done. We looked at that recently, and the concept with the insurance is that that's really the only way if we're actually going to get indemnification and kind of a hold harmless agreement from a homeowner. The only real way to protect the city is if there's some sort of insurance to back that up. Because, you might be in a situation where, a homeowner signs one of these agreements, but if they don't have the assets to cover some sort of liability that might, occur on the property, the hold harmless agreement would really be worthless. So we put in there insurance requirements. We did confirm through various insurance agents that that's something that can be extended, that your homeowner's insurance can cover something like that. And so I'm not sure if that was in the agreement we modeled it after, but that was something that we had presented at I believe it was at that committee of the whole.
Was this the Downers Grove model?
Yes.
Okay, right.
So how are we as a city actually going to follow up on this? I mean, I have a carriage walk in front of my house, so are we, the city, going to find out whether I've actually put it on my state farm policy? I mean, it just seems like it's a lot of paperwork connected to that, and I don't really understand it. And I will add one more question, Jeff, since you're up here. Maybe I'm misreading this, but it starts out and says, the owner as well as any successor entitled to the property shall be responsible jointly and severally for the following, which says to me that if I sell my property, I'm still responsible.
Yeah, and I think that's, and certainly that's one thing we can go back and look at. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure is obviously you can, have a house right now, you sign the license. Well, 5 years from now, maybe you move out of state or you move somewhere else. So we want to make sure this goes with the property. The ultimate protection for the city is if you continue to make everybody responsible for it. But certainly from a policy perspective, if we want to, make sure that it's simply the successor in interest that is responsible for it, I think that is something we could look at doing.
And then I guess my final question, I'm feeling very uncomfortable, I guess, about what I would characterize as a lot of hoops to jump through and some bureaucracy surrounding things that have been there for over 100 years. The one that I'm also really baffled about, it says that the city may terminate the owner's rights and responsibilities after giving notice to the owner or the resident, but it doesn't give any specifics about what would trigger that. So I see that you provided us with some suggestions about what might trigger that, but I don't see that written here. So 50 years from now, assuming we still have carriage walks, how would you ever interpret this? I'm just really bothered by the details of this and how it doesn't support what I think is a very positive move towards retaining our carriage walks. And so I see a conflict there.
Well, I guess 2 points. One on the first question about kind of the language that it would allow the city to go in and remove the carriage walk in the future or something to that effect. I think the intent there was that we don't know what the future is going to bring. Certainly there could be times in the future where there could be some sort of ADA issue or some sort of other liability issue. There could be some sort of need to get into the right-of-way for some other reason. So the thought was to allow kind of the most flexibility there, keeping in mind that this is, city property on the right-of-way, and so trying to maximize kind of the city's ability to control that. Now that said, obviously as, this is all policy and you guys as the council will direct us. What I think staff was kind of charged with doing is knowing that there are these issues out there, what is a way that we can allow the carriage walks to continue while at the same time minimizing any risk to the city. So that's where we came up with this encroachment license, the insurance, the hold harmless, those kinds of things. So it is a balancing, and it's certainly up to the council's discretion as to what you think, what protection you believe is required.
I guess I'd just finish off by saying personally, there are carriage walks that have been there 125, 130 years without any of this, and I I'm not really sure how it got to this level, but I'm very uncomfortable with supporting this as it stands.
If you could, just to summarize then again, the things that you would like to see changed then.
Well, I guess I don't understand the entire, this whole licensing of these, of it suddenly being where the homeowner has to sign an indemnification and provide all kinds of paperwork, and I don't understand how the city is going to track that without additional cost to us. And how did it go from being simply a carriage walk to something that's an entire process that I think will be both expensive to the homeowner and to the city? And, you know, at the end of the day, are we any further ahead? I'm not sure how we made that trail.
So we'll hear, we got several of us who want to speak to this, and then maybe we can figure out what the consensus is of concerns. I think clearly the idea from our previous meeting of committee of the whole was that we wanted to strike a balance between protecting the taxpayers and allowing flexibility for people to keep their carriage walks, but that they need to take some of the responsibility so our taxpayers didn't have to foot the bill for all of that. And I think, again, if there was a problem, and so I think that's what, if I'm not putting words in your mouth or Mr. Karch, but I think that's where we were coming from. Alderman, I'm sorry, was Judy next? Alderwoman Stearns, and then Black and Lauer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeff. I have a lot of questions and basically a lot of the same concerns that Alderwoman Schmidt has, because you really almost kind of have to live, you know, in the historic area of town to really understand, I think, and appreciate the many, many uses of the carriageways, one of which, of course, is for those many, many homes that don't have a side driveway at all. So anyway, but let me just ask you straightforward. If I understand this correctly, the city owns the carriageway. I mean, it's city property. It's certainly in the easement.
The carriageway is, it's, I guess, personal property constructed by the homeowner. So it's in our right-of-way. It's
in your right-of-way. So let's just suppose that the city needed to go into the carriageway to put in, you know, some infrastructure, or just for some reason they needed to, you know, break up the carriageway and get down under it. I would assume that they would issue, you know, an easement right-of-way claim on it like they would on anything else in the parkway. Would that not be the case? If the city needed the parkway or the carriageway area, I think they would. I think they have a right to it.
Yes, Mr. Karch, to maybe address how historically that's been handled. Alderman Stearns, if you think of it like a driveway, you know, it's a private benefit in the public right-of-way. It's there by permit. The way the code reads is it's there by permit. So if you were to build a driveway, you know, we regulate that in the same way. You know, you can't build a driveway 100 feet all the way across your drive. We have certain rights to be able to regulate what's put in our public right-of-way. And this, in the same way, would be similar. To do any kind of construction, period, even of a private benefit, there has to be a permit for that in the public right-of-way. So, in answer to your question, your original question was, right, if you went through, then let's say we need to put in a water main.
Right.
Part of it depends on what the council says going from here, but let's look historically before even you say anything about an encroachment license. Because if the council said, yes, we like this balance and tried to find an encroachment license, if we tore those up, whenever we impacted them, we would put them back, assuming they would sign an encroachment license. Not everybody wants the, you know, carriage walks. Actually, one of the things we found is quite a few people want them removed. We actually, it's not.
Yeah, Jim, if yes. I could, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm in the interest of time. My question is very, very simple. You know, I appreciate all that you're saying, but here's the simple question. If the city needs to get into that area underneath the carriageway, I believe the city has a right to it. I believe they have a right to do that. To what's all the fancy new electronic stuff going on? You know, I can't think of the word, but anyway, some of that, the electronic cables and whatever the city would deem necessary for the public good, water main sets. I believe the city has a right to get under the carriageway, and that is my question. That's my only question.
And if I could answer that, not only does the city, but all the franchisees,
okay,
natural gas, electric,
okay,
you know, et cetera,
and that includes the city. Is that right,
yes,
David?
yes.
Thank you. And that is exactly my point. The city has a right to that area, the parkway, the carriageway, et cetera. And I really first and foremost, I echo a lot of Karen's sentiments. They've been there for 100 years. The city has a right to that area. It's part of the city's right-of-way, including as the sidewalk is. And to suggest taking them out, for one thing, I would like to see the history of how many times anyone has ever been sued, the city has ever been sued over a parkway. I'm sure, I mean a carriageway. I'm sure it may have happened, but I think it would be exceedingly rare. And I really can't quite fathom that we're getting involved in something that is definitely a historic and architectural asset to the Victorian neighborhoods. And then, I mean, why? Why would we take them out anyway? I mean, why would we go to the expense and the trouble? Is it really that big of a liability issue? In my very humble opinion, I don't think it is. So we're just troubling trouble, in my view. We've got an area that really belongs to the city, just as the street does, just as the sidewalk does. And why would we force a homeowner, and in many cases, these homeowners in these historic areas are not the people who can afford this, to increase their insurance costs or take on liability or fill out and sign paperwork that they may not even fully understand. Why, my question, why are we doing this? And it strikes me as a first step toward the issue that one of our citizens spoke about earlier with asking citizens to pay for water mains out into the street. And that's been, the subject has been broached. And I'm really, I mean, frankly, I'm disturbed by that because I don't think our citizens can afford it. And I think we need, as a city, to take responsibility for what's on our right-of-way.
Okay,
So
we'll let
this
Karch answer that. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's just my opinion. There's really not much of an answer.
It's not a question. Well, I mean,
It's not a question.
I think in our previous committee of the whole, I thought we answered the question. I mean, I think I know the answer to the question, and that is because if we don't, the citizens of Bloomington, the taxpayers, are going to have to foot the bill. Same thing for the sewers. I mean, it could cost us tens of millions of dollars if we do what other cities don't do, and that is provide service all the way to the water main. So
I would argue that other cities don't do it. I would argue that other cities don't do it. The city of Bloomington has historically always done it, and I think that's part of, I mean, I've had water mains break, and the city restores the part after the property owners quits, after the property quits, the part that goes out to the street. They always have, and I believe many other cities, I mean, I'm not going to say I've done a study of it, I haven't, do that. And I think that's our responsibility as a city. I mean, to think that somebody, a homeowner, let's say on a fixed income, someone doesn't have the means, first and foremost, they have a huge expense just to fix that water main to the property line. But to say that they would be going out into the street and undergoing that kind of an expense, I think is very burdensome and not possible for some people on,
And there may be some ways to address that, but obviously if we take it up, it's tens of millions of dollars to the Bloomington taxpayer.
No, we've always taken it up. So it's
Jim, can you want to add to that? Because we need to move on, obviously.
If I can, let me try to reframe this, because I think that if we look at this in a way that the city of Bloomington has a great historical component. We're a community that's been around for a long time. We want to keep the carriage walks. I think that any kind of framing this as trying to get rid of all the carriage walks isn't accurate. What we're trying to do as a staff is look at best management practices out at all the other communities, try to find a way to balance minimizing exposure for the city while making it convenient for residents, but still protecting the city and allowing them to stay. So what we try to do is we found a community that had some success that we thought was a good balance. And again, that's just what we were able to find. Again, it's a policy level decision. But what we were trying to say is keeping them where they're at, how can a citizen then say, okay, I want to keep it where it's at. I can sign this document, attach it to the title. It's better from a legal standpoint, than the old hold harmlesses, because how many times do people move and transition? So it's a way for us to try to find a good balance, and that's what we do. We bring that to you, and as a council, if you'd like to tweak that or go a completely different direction, that's fully. The last thing I'd like to say, though, is again, it's a private benefit in a public right-of-way, and that's what we're trying to make sure as a city, that we're just protecting the city and finding a good balance to keep the character for the city.
We'll do Alderman Black and then Lauer, and then we're out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to ask a few high-level questions, and then we'll kind of dig in. So if we were to not pass this tonight, the old policy would still be in effect. Is that correct? The old carriage walk policy?
There actually is not an official, there's not a city code, but you're correct. What we would be doing is if citizens wanted it, if again, we take the direction from the council, but if you gave no direction, we probably would continue to ask people if they wanted it removed. We would remove it if they wanted it removed. If they didn't, we'd just leave it alone and assume the council was comfortable with the current practice.
So walk me through then, if we were to not pass this tonight, we would just continue to do that whole, reaching out to them and they don't respond. I remember there was some discussion about there was criteria that was in place that, if you had a certain driveway, access, you wouldn't be able to keep a carriage walk. Where's that coming from?
Now, that's a great question. So part of the question stemmed from, there was a period where we were looking and working with legal, what kind of criteria would you be able to have a carriage walk? Because some folks, traditionally carriage walks, if they were to access the street, they were there, that's what they were there for. Now, anytime you go into a new subdivision, carriage walks aren't built. That's not something that's commonly done now. Carriage walks were a kind of a good throwback for the historical component of what the city had. Now, carriage walks, as Alderman Stearns had pointed out before, have more uses. We have automated garbage carts. We have automated recycle carts. They're used for that in addition. So there's other benefits for them. But as far as an access point, if people had a driveway on the same point, then there's not the need for that access, and that was where some of that previous practice had come from.
Sure. Thank you. That was a clarification I was looking for. Now, I definitely see your guys' concerns, Karen and Judy, about this policy, and from my perspective, where I sit, I like to try to minimize as much risk exposure as we can possibly have, and it could happen where somebody slips and falls, and then there's some question about it, and you're right, we don't want to ever end up in a situation with that happening. I think this does address the staff concern, the policy presented, in a very fair way. I think we can, if someone is adamantly wants to put their stick in the mud and say, I want to go ahead and keep my carriage walk, that's great. Go ahead, just you got to sign this off. And I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. But if it becomes cost prohibitive, that's something that we'll remove at our cost. And I know that it was even mentioned that the ones that we had removed, the people who didn't want removed, we're going to go ahead and replace.
Correct.
So to me, this seems like a very fair compromise between both sides of mitigating risk and then taking it forward for the future. And I'll tell you that this was an issue that stirred up a lot of phone calls for me because I represent Ward 7, which is on the west side, and there's a lot of folks that have carriage walks that run the gamut from really beautiful, well-maintained historic character to crumbling and, as simple as just a couple rocks in the right-of-way. And I think this is a very fair way of addressing that. If you want to keep what you have, just go ahead and sign off, and there might be some cost to it on the insurance end of things, but we don't necessarily have to hold that risk on our end. I think that's fair and prudent for the city, and I think this is a fair compromise between both sides, and I'm absolutely supportive.
Alderman Lauer?
Yeah, I guess I want to get at the root of all this, and we did discuss it, and I understand it. However, it just seems like we're building another level of bureaucracy here. Is there some statistics that you can give me that will show me that we actually, as a city, need this? So are we exposing ourselves to liability to such an extent that we should be worrying about this? That's all I'm asking.
I think that's difficult to quantify. I can't stand up here and tell you, the number of lawsuits that are filed on these kinds of issues. It's, really just designed to mitigate that, and if that were to happen, you would have this in place. But no, I can't tell you that any specified number of claims. But at the same time, I haven't looked into that, and I haven't talked to the insurance carrier about that either. And that's certainly some information we could go back and try and find. But the risk is out there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let me ask before we move on, is there a motion to approve this as presented, or a motion to table, or I'm entertaining a motion before we move on? Alderman Fazzini.
I'd make a motion we approve.
Second.
Okay. I think at this point we know what the issues are. If we could go ahead and vote, please. Has everybody voted? I've got, okay. And we have 4 ayes and 5 nays. Madam Clerk, would you announce the nays, please?
Nays are Alderman Lauer, Alderman Say, Alderman Stearns, Alderman Schmidt, and Fro.
Okay, the motion does not carry. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move on to item 8B, and that's analysis of bids and approval of contract for the Pepsi Ice Center parking structure repairs. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our city manager, David Hales.
Pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 8A.
Okay.
Marina.
I'll blame it on I'm sorry. 8A. I
Good
just
idea.
jumped to the second thing.
I wasn't
Okay.
quite ready for 8B. But
Yeah, okay, and
but we
for
are
good
on
reason.
8A.
My apologies. Item 8A,
All
Lake
right.
Bloomington Elise Marina, and I'm turning this off to Jeff. Sorry about that.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try and get this photo up on the screen here. We have on the screen here a aerial map of the Lake Bloomington Marina. You can see this area down here that's in red. This is essentially, and it'll go over a little to the left as well, is essentially the area that will be encompassed by this lease. The access point will also be encompassed. The rest of this is kind of park area. The lease in front of the City Council tonight is with a, let me get to this on my, with TTK LLC. The managing partner is Michael Felipe. He's here at the meeting with his attorney, John Pratt, and I believe with Mr. Felipe's wife. They are residents. They live out at Lake Bloomington. They are proposing to enter into a new lease agreement with the City of Bloomington. We have worked on some revisions to this lease, put into place a few additional protections and worked on a few things with it. I'd like to just highlight a couple of those things. This will be a long-term lease with the city. The reason for the proposed long-term lease is you will see that the docks that are out there are actually personal property owned by an individual, not the City of Bloomington. These are expensive docks and they are in need of much repair. Mr. Filippi has agreed to maintain those, to make the necessary repairs. In fact, the one dock to the right there that you will see that's kind of floating out to sea, so to speak, has already been repaired. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done at this marina, and he has agreed to put that work into it. He's also agreed to pay the arrearage in the amount of about $32,000 from the previous tenant of this marina before this lease goes into effect. So in addition to putting in some money into the marina and paying the arrearage and some other improvements that he's going to do, he's investing a lot of money into this lease and so has asked for a long-term lease. The initial lease will be for 10 years, and then there are 2 5-year renewal periods. We have also restructured the lease so that in the former lease, the lease was payable a percentage per each slip that was rented. Under this new arrangement, we're calculating all of the slips being rented, and there's just going to be one payment that's going to be due before July 15th of every year. One of the reasons that's important is that it maximizes the rent that the city's going to get, but it also, from an accounting perspective, will help city administration and finance make sure that those rental payments are being made, and we're not going to have any kind of auditing or accounting function to make sure that we're getting all of the revenue that is due the city. That is set to go up over the years and also increase over the 2 renewal periods. We've also built into the lease protections to make sure that the lease property is managed properly, and that if there are any issues out there, that the city would reserve certain rights and default rights. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Filippi has agreed if there are any questions about his intentions for the property, he'd be willing to address those as well, or his attorney.
Okay, questions from our council members. Alderwoman Stearns, and then Schmidt and Fazzini.
I was just curious about the current status of the slips. What percentage are actually rented at this point? Has there ever been a waiting list, or is there one maybe?
Ken, I wonder if
Hi.
you could state your name just for the record.
Mike Filippi, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you all, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it is my understanding that there are 65 slips, that they're all rented right now. I've been told of a waiting list. I'm not aware that there is one right now, but yeah, it's pretty fully occupied. It does need a little bit of repair, and it needs a little tender loving care, but if y'all have been out at the lake and you know the area, you know it's a beautiful area, and it wouldn't take much
So
to
the
make it a lot
slips,
nicer.
what are you anticipating in terms of the month, or the yearly fee?
I believe that the current annual rental is $645, which on the public record, I'm going to say is a very fair price. Let's say it that way, shall we?
Okay.
But, you know, I think people have to get a little something for it before you start changing prices on people. I've sat through the council meeting. I understand the council's concerns about, you know, people getting something for what they're paying for. So right now it is in a bit of disrepair. And I intend to bring it back in repair, put some gates out there, make it nice. And should the fair opportunity to raise the rent over time present itself, certainly. You know, but it's not going to go up to, I mean, this is not going to, you know, be a $2,000 a month thing, a year.
Right, and is there any kind of priority given to property owners, or how do you determine who?
I mean, actually, just the opposite.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, Lake Bloomington has a. I've been very privileged to have a place out there with my wife, Cheryl Baller Filippi, out there for 18 years now, and you know, the prices of those places are going really high. It's very expensive to be out there, and a lot of folks, particularly those who might have carriage walks, can't afford, you know, to get on out there and enjoy the lake. And I think if you make it more accessible and you give people a place to park their boat for a few $1,000s a year,
Right.
or not even that,
Right.
for $1,000 or less a year, and you give them something for it.
Right.
You put, you know, there are no gates there right now, for example.
So there's no security?
No.
Okay.
So I probably should make a public record of that. Mr. Mayor, if you could expunge that from the record, because we
I don't have the authority to do that.
Okay.
So.
So you have to go ahead and make a few improvements to make it a safe place,
Sure.
an accessible place. Right now, there's stuff in the water that needs to be taken out of the water. I mean, God forbid somebody were to fall into that water now. It'd be good for them not to hit anything. you know.
What does it draft, as far as, how deep is it?
Oh, it's pretty deep. It's about I would say, depending on what's happening with the water supply of the city, right now I think I want to tell you it's 15 feet in most
Okay.
places.
Well,
So it's plenty deep.
Yeah.
You know, but
Okay.
if you all are familiar with the lake, you know it's not unheard of for September and October to be months of water being pulled out and the lake going down. I live on sort of a cove out there, and we have walked that cove, and it's you know, it's 15 feet now, but it's been empty before.
Okay.
So, and I will thank Mr. Juergens. I do appreciate one thing he said about me paying $32,000 in back taxes, which I'm happy to do, although I thought I was paying $37,000. So, however y'all want to do it, I'm amenable either way. Okay.
Well, I think it could be a nice asset for, you know, all the boaters or those who want to use it. I think it could be a very nice asset, and, you know, should be brought up to some kind of, you know,
Right.
yeah,
And that's
condition.
exactly.
And so that's good. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Actually, Alderwoman Schmidt offered to make a proposal to make a motion. Sometimes we have the cart before the apple, or the cart before the horse. Oh, gosh, long day. Sorry. Alderwoman Schmidt, will you make a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this lease agreement as presented.
Okay,
to us.
is there a second? And then we'll have a discussion.
Second.
Second by Alderman Fazzini, and I believe the order ahead was Alderwoman Stearns, then Schmidt.
But that was for the motion.
Oh, okay. And then who else wanted to speak? Alderman Fazzini.
My question isn't so much this specifically, because I'm definitely in favor of it. I think we'd come to a very fair agreement, working with Mr. Juergens. We appreciate your being flexible,
Thank
too.
you, Alderman.
Even for $37,000. Your annual rent, it would be $41,825, so you'll get it back in the first year, so you'll be okay.
Sure, that's what I was
Yeah,
hoping for.
that's what you were told.
Because there's no money in the improvements either, though, but that's okay.
Yeah, no money. The question is, we were in arrears since 2007, and it isn't a question about this property. It's a question about how can anybody be in their arrears for 7 years without us doing something about it?
Let me go ahead and answer that. I can only say it was not brought to my attention or to the corporate counsel's attention or to finance until I think it was earlier this year. I think another thing to point out is we do not have a very strong management infrastructure in place to oversee not only this marina, but a lot of the leases out there. And one things we're looking at going forward, what needs to be a much more proactive, robust, professional and comprehensive rental management policy and practice together with personnel going forward. I think this is just another indication of where sometimes we're asking too much for some of our employees, but again, it should have been brought to the city managers and finance and corporate counsel's attention much, much sooner. I do appreciate Jeff Jurgens as this was brought to his and my attention. He's been working diligently with other staff members to bring a successful resolution, which I think we have here tonight, to recover those funds. But going forward, we do have to put in place the resources necessary to really manage this, as well as many of our other contracts, in a much more timely manner than we have in the past. But it does tie back to resources in part.
Follow-up question. We also, sometime earlier this year, I think, had an arrearage on the hotel motel tax. One hotel was far behind, and we had the same discussion. Do we think we have many more things like this out there before we set up a policy to correct it going forward? How deep is it?
Actually, I can't answer that because, just like as we talk about development agreements or annexation agreements, we do know that there's many of those and other contracts where we don't have the manpower to assure that we have a much modern contract administration structure in place. That, unfortunately, is one of the deficiencies when you're operating with very lean staff, not enough resources to do a professional job. I wish we could say at some point in time we can get to the point of inventory all these, but it's, I think we're struggling with that and many other urgent and critical matters that we have to put at the forefront to deal with. But there's much more that we can do, and even in the future we'll be talking about some other areas of concern too from an operational day-to-day basis.
Mayor, one last question, actually suggestion. This would be, if I were still at Wesleyan and class and business law, I would find this to be a unique challenge to be able to have access to the city records and be able to develop a policy and find out how far behind on anything we are as an intern. So this would be a great intern project. It really would.
I'll mention that to my colleagues in the business department.
That would be good, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Lauer?
It just seems to me that Mr. Meeks might even have a point here. A transparency ordinance that infers many years of record keeping and then peers looking at one another. Who's going to take care of this? I don't think we need a big bureaucracy to check all the contracts. I think we just need to watch each other. And that's what a community does. It seems to me that we could put a lot of this online and we could watch it. I don't know why we couldn't. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think at this point we're ready to vote on this particular agreement. All right. We have the motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to item 8B, which is the appropriate time to move on to item 8B. And my glasses also are broken as I'm doing this. The analysis of bids and approval of contract for the Pepsi Ice Center. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hales for clarification.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just first indicate that we do not have for tonight an analysis of bids and a bid award recommendation to present to the council. So that particular matter, as far as a business item, we see needs to be postponed to September 8th. And if you'd indulge me for a minute, let me kind of mention kind of what is transpiring in connection with the repair of the Pepsi Eye Center parking structure. First and foremost, as you may recall, one of our high priorities and goals is to complete the repairs to the Pepsi Eye Center parking structure so that we can reopen the structure before winter time. We have and in order to do that, we have issued a request for bid in connection with this particular structure itself. We've had the assistance of Walker Restoration together with Greg Meter of Holland and Knight and many others. Last week, the bids were open, and what we did find is there was a lot of variation, and between the low bid, which was approximately in about $1 million range, there was a medium bid in the 1.5, and then a high bid of about $2 million. Now, these were pre-qualified bidders, so they were determined to have the expertise, the experience, the wherewithal to really bid on work of this nature. As the collective staff reviewed these bids, a couple of concerns arose. One, it did appear that there's the potential that unless we clarify and actually pursues a third addendum to this bid, we may not be getting the lowest responsible bids we need for this project. So consequently, today what we did is we issued addendum number 3. This addendum has gone out to those 3 bidders. They are being asked to kind of review changes that have been made in the specifications and conditions and to resubmit their bids on or before September 5th. That is and then what we'd like to do is to put on the September 8th City Council meeting a motion or a topic similar to what we have here, analysis of bids for the Pepsi Eye Center parking structure. It is our hope that we can do a quick turnaround, and this will be quick, because September 5th should be that Friday.
But do I have a question there, though, City Manager Hales, okay. Is if our packets need to go out on Thursday, how are we going to have the recommendation?
We'll have a placeholder, similar to what we have tonight. And then what we'd have to do is, if we can get out something on Friday, however, we may have to bring the bids to the council on Monday. Or, as a backup, because time is critical to the repair of the structure, we may even have to look at a special city council meeting if we're still working through the analysis of these bids, even on Monday the 8th. Let me mention just a couple of things that I think is driving these changes. First and foremost, what we believe is one thing that needs to be changed and has been changed as part of the addendum. The 1TT beam that has been identified for total replacement, we have put off so that the actual deadline for the replacement of this beam could take place as late as spring of 2015. In the original bid, it had to be replaced on or before the end of November, together with all other work. There seemed to be some real concern about liquidated damages, and when you talk about designing, manufacturing, delivering, installing, pre-designed construction beams of this nature, it may have been just a little too much to even ask these pre-qualified bidders to meet that. However, all the other repairs do still appear to be, even though it's reasonable, but it's an aggressive schedule to get all the other repairs completed on or before the end of November. So with this change, we're still wanting to see these bids with all the repairs, with the exception of the double T beam replaced, on or before November. And as you may recall, that work has to be done in warm weather, and we're continuing to lose opportunities. We do believe that these bidders feel the work can be done, for the most part, except for the replacement of the beam. but they're wanting to get started just as soon as possible. So that's why we believe that by issuing the addendum, what we can do is hopefully take out of the equation any pressure to kind of push up some of their cost liability, especially as associated with the double T-beam.
David, the number of spaces that, if that were the case, if they didn't finish that until September, right, that only affects a few parking spaces.
Yeah, we believe if they get all the other phases done, we could reopen about 188 parking spaces by the end of November. So that's a tremendous, progress. There would just be a few parking spaces below and above this particular double T-beam that would still not be, they couldn't be used until spring when the I-beam is replaced.
Okay, so this evening, what are you asking us to table this to a time certain?
Asking really you to take no action tonight, because what we can do is we can go ahead and we will agendize or put on the agenda the consideration of these bids. We just ask your indulgence because with a Friday bid opening, we will work as quickly as we can. But what we're hoping to get is see these bids be as low as possible, especially by changing the deadline for that one. And who knows, maybe see a little bit more competitive bids without the fluctuation of people concerned with liquidated damages, because we have even modified some of those to get, the lowest bids possible, save the city the lowest amount of money. And I do want to just throw in one other thing. One of the other objectives is to get a good, strong cost estimate of the repairs so that as we go into mediation with all the so-called responsible parties who we believe are at fault for this, that mediation will take place that first week in September, I think the 9th and the 10th. So by having these bids come in on the 5th, that'll also allow us to have that information in hand as we meet with the mediator and all those parties as well.
Okay. So now,
no action.
So even though we have an item on here, we don't have to do anything if we don't have a motion.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have some questions though, and I'm going to go ahead and start really quickly then from Alderman Fruin to Black and Lauer.
Thank you. Two comments. Is it unrealistic to ask that the bid information be returned to us by Wednesday, September 3rd? And secondly, if you can't ask for that date, at least if you got the bids to us in raw form by Friday, that'd at least give us a weekend to look at it so that we're not coming in here Monday night kind of rushed looking through a lot of new material. So my interest would be September 3rd or Friday getting the raw material to us.
Mr. Hales?
We'd only have to kind of touch base with these individuals. We are looking at, I think it's a televised bid consultation, or what are we calling it, kind of a pre-bid meeting. That's going to take place Thursday morning. We can ask that of the bidders. But again, what we want to make sure is they have sufficient time to modify their bids. But we'll bring it up Thursday morning and see if that is possible. We also got to keep in mind this is Labor Day weekend coming up, and we do anticipate a lot of people being out of town. So that was the other point of consideration.
Okay, but obviously getting council information makes, as soon as possible, makes some degree of sense. Alderman Black and then Lauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, David, for that update. I would be of the opinion with Jim here on getting it out as soon as possible, especially considering all of the attention this has garnered from the public and the concern of interest or why this has happened, how we've gotten to this point. I'd like the most open process as possible, and I would suspect that the companies that are bidding on this, if they're willing to participate with us in this project, I mean, between $1 and $2 million, I mean, that's got to be substantial for them, so it's going to be in their interest to expedite this. So I'd be in favor of that. I don't want to see any kind of delays.
Thank you. Alderman Lauer?
Just a quick concern that, typically when we rush into these things and try to change too quickly, we end up with some cost overruns. I'm very concerned that we may end up with more than we bargained for. And so from a management standpoint, it's just a level of concern here. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Fazzini?
Yeah, when we went and visited 6 other communities, city council meetings, we made several changes to how we do things, and instead of finishing at 11:30 at night, we usually get done around 8:30 now. And we've improved the safety in this area. One of the things we found out from one is that material like this and our council packets are delivered to the council people in one community by the police for every meeting. I'm not proposing we do that, but I'm thinking if we have everything ready by Friday evening or Saturday morning.
We could do it once.
And we could
Actually,
maybe
the
make an
county,
exception. Instead of having a separate meeting.
County board delivers it to you on Friday. They don't, to your door.
So in this case, rather than having a separate meeting on Tuesday, I'd much rather have somebody drop it off at my house and I'll look at it over the weekend. Just a thought.
Right. It could even be emailed electronically. So I think okay. So I think
Mayor, if I could just make one other point. Sure. We are scheduled for the bid opening on that Friday morning. We can get to you what the bid results are. The heavy lifting is going to be especially the staff and Walker Restoration evaluating the bids, going through the detail of the information that I'm not sure is maybe is concerned. So again, we will definitely be getting out to you what did the revised bids come in at, and then over the weekend, that's what they're going to be doing is closely making sure there's no other problems, mathematical errors, did they submit all the documents, et cetera, et cetera. So just there is that immediate, bid results that we will be getting to you Friday afternoon. So,
Alderman Sage.
Yeah, maybe just a quick comment, and I'm reminded a long time ago of what an old tool and die maker told me. He said, why is there's never enough time to do it right the first time, but always enough time to do it again, right? And so if we have to have a special meeting in order to allow staff the time that they need to diligently review the bids, then that's what we may have to do. And I'm not certainly a fan of one more meeting, but what I'm saying, this is a multi-million-dollar scenario that we're dealing with here.
Yes.
And it's a complicated thing, and we've engaged a number of experts to try and work through this process. And if it by chance means that we have to get together one more time for another quick meeting, because that allows us a nice thorough review, a complete, a legitimate, credible review of all the bids, so to Kevin's point, that we have a high level of confidence that we know what it is that we're going to award here. That may be necessary. So I guess I'm coming down more on let's make sure staff has the time to do it right the first time so we don't have to do it again.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty clear. All right. We're going to go ahead and move on to 8C, and it is our website transparency ordinance. And we're going to go ahead and start with do I have a motion to approve, and then we'll discuss?
I'd like to make a motion we approve as presented.
Okay. Moved by Alderman Fazzini. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. All right. Who would like to speak to this? Okay. Go ahead. Good job, Jeff. Your comments were brilliant. Okay. We have the motion carries 8-1, and there is one nay to announce. Madam Clerk?
Alderman Lauer votes no.
Okay. All right. All right. I will turn it over to City Manager's discussion, and then I just have a couple remarks under Mayor. Go ahead.
Mayor, I have nothing to report for discussion tonight.
Okay. Well, I have one piece of big news, and that is I don't know much about Beyond.com, but I love them. Okay. Beyond.com has rated the 360 or so metropolitan areas in the United States with respect to where the jobs are. Number 1 is San Jose, California. Number 2 is Bloomington, Illinois. So that's definitely kudos. I think Nora sent us out the information. The only other piece of information that's also, well, it's good news, but we're collaborative, so we're not going to rub it in. The Bloomington police and firefighters won, get this in the score, baseball, 27-10 over normal. Now, I was there to wish them well, and I had to go to something else, but in a game, not just 27-10, 37 runs? I wanted to see that. Anyway, thank you to our police and firefighters, and if you communicate that to our distinguished chiefs, that we really appreciated that they showed up, and it was, what, a heat index of well over 100. Oh, Chief Hefner. You want to add to this, Chief? Yeah.
I just wanted you to know that Alderman Fazzini helped put it together, but it was for St. Jude Run, and they raised $600.
Oh, did they? Awesome.
Bloomington Enrollment, yes.
Actually, yes, Alderman Fazzini got me together with with Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, geez, a year and 2 months ago?
Yes.
So it took a year. Government sometimes runs, gets slow, but after a year and 2 months, we got it, and we got it done 27-10. Cool. Thank you. Any aldermanic remarks? We'll go ahead and start with Alderman Fazzini.
Sure. The important thing here is we got it together. I mean, it may have taken a year and a half, but it did happen. And what was really good was the $600 that was collected. There's a 50-50 drawing after every game, and about 250 of it came from that. But the rest of it came when the Corn Belters allowed the firefighters and the police to walk through the audience with a boot and ask people to put money in. And I was sitting there, and believe me, everybody was putting money in to help St. Jude's. So they not only played a softball game, they were doing it for charity. And I think it was great for both communities to do it. And all the firefighters and policemen I talked to said, we want to do it again. Of course, I didn't talk to any of the normal people. And the Corn Belters also allowed them to tailgate, which they don't normally. And they made $1 beers available for everybody who played and every family member. So they had a special little deal. So anybody who stayed for the regular
$1
game.
beers,
yeah,
can't
what a
beat
deal.
that. Yeah.
So it was a good thing, and hopefully it happens each year now.
Great, thank you. And see, Alderwoman Stearns, and, no, I think you're next.
Okay,
Alderman
thank
Stearns and Lauer.
you. Thank you, Mayor. I had a chat with our new Community Development Director, Tom Dabriner, today, and also Frank. And very productive talk about some of the issues in the historic neighborhoods. And I just was excited to hear that, you know, they're bringing some of the experience from Downers Grove and from Frank's Kankakee, Joliet area and some of the historic preservation ideas, not just for the S4s, but for all of the owners who are so valiantly really trying to, you know, be that beacon of light, if you will, in the historic neighborhoods that are so often so challenged. And in fact, we had to talk about possibly looking at some awards, historic, and you and I have talked about this, Mayor Renner, and I know Karen would be a very good, you know, advocate, and really Kevin, all of us, Scott, could nominate and could, you know, just kind of reinforce those who have decided to stay. Just have decided to stay in their neighborhood and make it better. So I think it would be kind of exciting and a lot of fun to do that, and I just want to thank Tom and Frank, mention that so we can maybe move forward a little bit with that, and I know you were supportive of that at one point, Mayor, and I'm sure you probably still would be. Thank you.
Absolutely. Alderman Lauer.
Well, not only that, Judy, but the folks that actually have come back is outstanding, and I'm very, very proud of a number of our more aged or maybe senior citizens that have come back, especially at South Hill.
Yeah, I'm getting a little more sensitive.
I
to that
know,
these
I
days,
am too. I just turned 52. Thanks. One of the reasons I want to just review why I voted no on the transparency ordinance. I'm certainly not opposed to a transparency ordinance, but it just seems like we don't refine things well enough. We don't really outline things well enough here. We talked a year ago, I think it was over a year ago, about reviewing the vicious and dangerous dog ordinance, and we promised Wishbone that we would do that, and we still haven't done that. And so I think we really need, at this point, to look back a little bit and review some of these things that we've done in the past and look at whether they might be further refined and made better. Same thing with the noise ordinance. I think we promised folks that we'd look at these and look at what has happened since we passed it. And I really think that we could refine that transparency ordinance to include a number of years of data online. By the way, our library, and this is kudos to them, have a lot of this data in hard copy. But you have to really work to put it all together and then do the math behind it. And that's a little bit more difficult rather than if we could just present it online. So anyway, just a few comments. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Alderman Black, second by Alderwoman Schmidt. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We're adjourned.